Last year's release of Uncharted 4 brought a conclusion to the treasure hunting exploits of Nathan Drake. But that hasn't stopped Naughty Dog from continuing the franchise with Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, a standalone expansion story that takes place after the events of Uncharted 4. With new leads, unique gameplay mechanics, and a greater emphasis placed on puzzle solving, Lost Legacy proves itself an adventure worth taking.
I bet we find these symbols. We find the tusk. Not bad, Fraser.
The game follows two returning franchise characters and an expedition through the Indian highlands of Hellebudu. Chloe Fraser was last seen as a partner to Nathan in Uncharted 3, while Nadine Ross was an antagonist who led the militia group Shoreline in Uncharted 4. The two have teamed up in Lost Legacy in search of an ancient Hindu relic known as the Tusk of Ganesh. The friction between Chloe and Nadine is readily apparent. Unlike the friendly camaraderie shared by Nathan and Sully in previous Uncharted games, Chloe's aloof and easygoing nature frequently clashes with Nadine's strictly professional demeanor. Over the course of the adventure, the two gradually grow to respect one another, and the banter that results as you roam about Hellebudu is some of the most enjoyable dialogue in the game.
We won't have the advantage of surprise again. Don't think he was expecting much from you.
Wait, was that a compliment? That sounded like a compliment.
Since neither Chloe nor Nadine received much development with their respective games, it was a pleasant treat to see their characters fleshed out in more meaningful ways in Lost Legacy. The story overall is rather par for the course for an Uncharted game. However, some later plot twists and surprisingly sensitive moments may catch you pleasantly off guard. The narrative is complemented by the game's stellar presentation. Naughty Dog's phenomenal character modeling and facial expressions return to instill life into Chloe and Nadine. Breathtaking vistas and sceneries run rampant throughout the Highlands, and harrowing action set pieces keep you at the edge of your seat as the spectacle unfolds at every corner of the screen. The stunning visuals are punctuated by a poignant soundtrack that amplifies the ambience of ancient Hellebudu and gets the adrenaline pumping during intense action sequences. Lost Legacy's gameplay is split into two halves. The first half, and a series first, places you in a large open space to explore and complete objectives at your leisure. The latter half, meanwhile, is the linear level-based progression familiar from past titles. During the sandbox portion, players are tasked with completing the trials contained within 3 temples around various edges of the map. Scattered around the region are also various optional activities such as clearing enemy encampments and additional puzzles. Completing these side objectives rewards the player with a useful token, collecting all of which grants an item that reacts to the presence of artifacts, the standard collectibles of the game. Having a sensor for these pickups is nice, but the way the game signals the proximity of an artifact by emitting a loud sound through the PlayStation controller can get obnoxious, especially when there are multiple artifacts in a single area. Luckily, the sensor can be disabled at any time, but it would have been nice to have a more elegant solution. Your primary mode of transportation around Hellebudu is a 4-wheel drive Jeep. Despite the varied terrain and lack of guidance or waypoints, traversing the Highlands is intuitive and painless. Clear, well-defined paths mark where the Jeep can and can't go, and a short glance at your map can quickly orientate you to your surroundings. This doesn't translate as well on foot, however. Due to the open nature of the region, some ledges that appear climbable aren't always so, which was sometimes a slight annoyance when trying to reach higher ground. This was never too much an issue though, as a little searching would always turn up the proper path to take. Contrasting the new open-ended elements of the game, combat largely remains untouched from Uncharted 4. Most encounters begin with a stealth portion where you can gradually whittle down enemy numbers with careful takedowns. Marking enemies with a quick button press is just as critical as utilizing cover and tall grass to stay out of their sights. New to Lost Legacy is the silenced pistol. This valuable weapon, when found, adds a proactive element to stealth scenarios that helps relieve stress built up from staying hidden. It's not all powerful though, as enemies wearing helmets require 2 successive headshots to down, while armored foes can't be hurt at all. Once a firefight breaks out, it's back to the usual shooting action familiar from past games. Moving from cover to cover to eliminate hostiles feels natural and fluid, and the liberal placement of grapple points in most arenas further ups the intensity of these frantic skirmishes. After clearing an area of enemies, or while exploring, you may find sealed crates lying around that can be opened using Chloe's lockpicking skill. To accomplish this, you must slowly rotate the analog stick while feeling for a vibration in the controller. Once found, you must maintain that position on the stick for a few seconds before the lock is disengaged, and the process is repeated once or twice more. It's a simple mechanic with no fail state, but helping yourself to the contents of a crate after cracking the lock yourself provides a greater sense of gratification than simply pressing a button.
As a wise old man once said, abracadabra.
Contrasting the high-octane gunplay are the various puzzles that Chloe and Nadine encounter throughout their exploits. These diverse challenges range from standard concentric circle rotations all the way to what can only be described as extreme hopscotch. Each puzzle strikes a fine balance in difficulty that provides a strenuous, but manageable, mental exercise. Every gimmick introduced is easy to grasp with a little experimentation from which careful planning and execution are required to come out on top. The immense satisfaction gained from solving these mind-bending brain teasers is just as much as the reward as whatever was accomplished in the game. Uncharted: The Lost Legacy does well to differentiate itself from the rest of the franchise. It builds upon the solid foundation established by its predecessor, while adding its own unique elements such as an open-ended structure. Chloe and Nadine naturally fit into their new protagonist roles and bring a fascinating dynamic that keeps the story constantly engaging throughout its 10-hour-long game time. While there are a couple bothersome game design quirks here and there, these are mere nitpicks that hardly detract from the experience as a whole. Naughty Dog has done an admirable job in crafting a distinctive, standalone expansion with Lost Legacy, and it's an adventure worthy of standing on its own two legs. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to give it a like. This was the first review I've ever written, much less made a video review of, so if you have any constructive criticism, that is very much appreciated. If you want to see more of what I have to offer, why don't you check out my blog, which you can find a link to in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.